Peace, peace. Man, I was this close. You know how that little nap, you ever wanted to do something and all of a sudden you just like, man, I don't feel like doing it. And I'm not saying I'm not listening to my body. Not to say like not listen to your body. I was just like, oh, do I really want to do it? You know, those basically like the doubts come up around it. Like, oh, do I need to do it? Yes, I need to do it. I think the reason I felt like that, first let's give a, here come the bugs already. Let's give an honor to Source, you know, to the Creator, the Most High. Just gratitude for where we are currently. Things have been very intense and very sensitive, like lead in this Gemini season. But most importantly, like I kind of like been having some very in-depth conversations lately that really highlights, you know, a lot of wounds, childhood woundings, childhood traumas, and it's been a very slow progression, but progression, a process, but still we are progressing. Just give myself a moment because this video I don't know, I had to delete some stuff because I just got some stuff that I need to get out, but you know, you just never know what certain phones you know, refill the cloud, refill the, not clouds, but the iCloud. Oh, you need more space, pay for it. I'm like, bro, no, bro, how much y'all need me to delete? I ain't paying for that. To get more space. But get right into it. This is going to be probably a very sensitive and graphic for a lot of people because I am talking about a very sensitive subject. And I'm not a specialist in this, okay, people? But I do specialize in talking shit and communicate my experiences. I'm trying to see how I want to do this approach, but at the same time, I just gotta be me through it all because it wouldn't be right if I didn't. And it's just, you know, for the privacy, I guess. But it's not even that because my thing is I want to be as authentic as possible, like when I do create these videos, because it's about for the all involved and so forth, because you know, you want to respect the privacy of other people. And I don't mean by names, because not everybody knows, or even some people not even concerned about that. It's just more so like when I say personal or in depth, it really has a lot to do with my experiences. And most importantly, like family dynamics. So, how could I get into this? So the topic at hand is going to be really talking about a lot of things dealing with sexual traumas, molestation, and you know, things like that are. How could I say this? I've seen it from my perspective, but I've had the opportunity to now, even more so, because I've had experiences with women that have discussed this. But this is more like, when I get into details about this, really highlighting why even some of us made certain decisions or even entrusted in, let's say, the opposite or opposing sex. And this is what a lot of these traumas can trigger, or a lot of these subconscious fears, memories, repressed emotions, a lot of things that, again, I'm not a specialist or professional in this. It's just like I'm expressing this from the best of my abilities and from my own knowingness and knowledge of certain things, and that's just what it is. And now when it comes to really after these things that is going to be said, because everybody doesn't have the courage And it's not to say that they are weak in any way. It's more so everyone doesn't have the support around them. And what I'm going to discuss really highlights that, because it really had touched me in my heart to know that someone close to me has experienced something like that, or just even a relative. And it really just talks about a lot of so many things that a lot of us have endured, and that we haven't discussed, that we've been keeping down so long. How could I say this? I don't even have to say her name. Let's just say this. Someone that I've spoken to just recently, we got into the subject of talking about these things. And she's a woman, by the way. And, well, you know what? I'm not even going to shoot the shit. It is my sister. And again, just the reason why, like, I'm expressing this, because there are so many people who don't either have the courage or who fear this, keeping these things disclosed, because we'll easily judge a celebrity, we'll judge other people, and when we have these people right beneath us, or people that have enabled these behaviors, these patterns, these things that have played so much of kept this cruel behavior going for so long, to where now we're at 30, 40, even 50, and some people, even some I know, even using religion to even try to cope, or using certain things to try to cover up the wounds in itself. And so, because the reality of, and I always give people actuality, is that the solution isn't always the same for everybody. Everyone's trauma, everyone's experience is completely different. So what might work for you may not work for me. But just having an in-depth conversation about how that subject came up, and I'm trying to see how we got into depth about it. We was something along the lines of talking about how someone in the family dynamic had accused someone or exposed someone of sexual, some molestation, or touching them, or just something like that. And what angered me and pissed me off a lot about these things that have happened is that it immediately removes the protection that we're supposed to have with these people that are close to us. And then, most importantly, the ones that are our caregivers, that just brush it to a side for so long. And this also what makes women and men question their sexuality or their sexual preferences. And I'm going to get into depth about it, because it has a lot to do with where I'm going with this. We were discussing a subject as such. And then, my sister began to say, like, how she was afraid of, to be around men. And I was like, what? I'm like, and this is, it's typical, like a natural human response or something like that, to where there's no telling how many hundreds, and I'll just say the number, like millions of women who have experienced this, and men, but just hearing it from a woman's perspective, listening. And what really touched me is the fact of, like, that it was relatives. And, that being that it's relatives, and just seeing how, because this is me piecing things together. This is not me saying that this is how it occurred to her being who she is, or or what she become to be. But I feel like this could play a major part in a lot of people even choosing the opposite sex, because it has a lot to do with their safety or even feeling safe around, you know, if you are a woman, feeling safe around men. Again, even when it comes to sexual, something sexually, because due to that trauma that has been induced, or due to that experience from whether your childhood or even adulthood, for some people that I met that talked about things like this, just by hearing their stories, even hearing, because there's so many different uh, storylines around this, because I've heard so many, to where I even met someone who kept certain things, and I won't disclose their name, but just from the experience, they kept certain information regarding that person, because it was, it was like in a way of like the emotional trauma connected to it. And I was just in disbelief to see, like, if this person inflicted this, then why are you holding on to this idea, like this pain? And it was just being a part of that experience really it really shook my world, because I'm like, well, if you experience this, then why would you still be feeling the need to even want to interact or have anything connected to that person? And what a lot of people don't know, and I'm still learning about this book, but again, everything don't have to be true, don't have to resonate with everyone. The things that I've learned or come to the awareness of, even with my own traumas or experiences, is that there's something in our brains when it comes to our neurotransmitters, memories, when that trauma was inflicted, when you're talking about things that have been repressed for so long. It's not just in our minds where we hold these memories. We hold these traumas within our bodies. When you're talking about a woman being molested, a child or something, and depending on their experience and how early it is, because that's important too, how early it is, because that there's a I don't really want to say scientifically, but when it comes to the first 7 years, the 7 years are very important, or the first 7 years of a child's life. Just everything is vital. But when you're talking about in that innocent place where they're still coming into the world of knowing who they are, or the awareness around making sense of this world and seeing everything in an innocent way, or seeing, there was a point in a lot of our lives before we experience some type of trauma or experience some type of pain, or even some of us being birthed from trauma or pain. But there was still the imagination, or we had a fascination with the world naturally, until certain things happen with us traumatically, to where it was carried along. And the reason I see it so powerful, so deeper emotionally with women or little girls when that happens to them, is because they're naturally, innately emotion. Their womb, or their yoni, their private, is a sacred part of them in bringing life into this world. So when someone forcefully, engages in an activity like that without even that child or that person, having, even giving consent or even opening themselves up to that, I can't even put into words not only the pain, the trauma, but the everyday struggle women have to live with, and men. But most importantly, the reason the thing I say, the difference between men and women, is like, again, we we're mastering more logic. Men are typically more in the masculine aspect, energetically wise, in our mind. You know, we're not more. I gotta stop saying that. We tend to be like analyze things, really, organize things and so forth. In a way of like if you put something down, I'm using myself. It's like I gotta count. It's like we're very detail oriented. Women are as well, but naturally, we are naturally logically in our mind, like about things. So that's the thing with me, with my trauma, what I experienced is that what was so challenging for me to recover and be restored within myself, representing the patriarchal and the men of my family. And this is probably a gem for women that have sons or dating men, is that we been depending on our upbringing or experiences or however trauma was induced, we're naturally going to do like replay things probably in our mind. And being if we don't know how to express it, then that has probably a lot to do with depending on the mother we've experienced or women we experienced with trauma who really never showed us, what it is to navigate that, or seeing men who navigated their emotions healthy and women who were healthy examples of that. Seeing that interaction between a man and a woman, is it healthy, how they express their emotions and so forth. Even anger, because anger is righteous. It's okay to be upset or angry, but did we see people attack each other with their words, destroy each other and so forth, belittle them, devalue and so forth? So that's the thing that with me, before I get back into like the womb aspect of connecting those things when it comes to the man and woman, is that in a way we kind of more rude towards the mind, being analytical about things. And I was over analytical a lot because of the traumas. And when certain traumas or certain things in relationship came up related to my woundings, I had this thing where I would replay the fact of what would happen, or that flight or flight feeling would come in to where it'll remind me of that memory. I'll feel something, and being that I didn't know how to navigate emotions, or I would be naturally impulsive, then there was no balance between being logical and being emotional. So I was being impulsive and then being over analytical. So I was overthinking or focused more on the outcome. Social anxiety. It was a lot of anxiety around even interacting with the opposite sex. So going back to women who have dealt with that, when it comes to the fact of like hearing my sister say she feared men or afraid to be around them, and I'm listening to her say this, and at the same time she has a daughter, and she also spoke and said that, well, that's why I'm afraid of my daughter being around men. I'm like, yo, that's it. You hear people throw this around like, oh, you have a daughter, as a man that you've experienced things as a you basically you went through a lot of traumas or certain things, not just trauma, but you went through a lot of things with women to where it's like, oh, if you have a daughter, that's gonna be your karma, in this negative, just not negative, but in a way to where it's like, oh, you're gonna get back all that you did. And it's not, I don't see it from that perspective, depending on how you're learning. Like if you're open to learning rather than seeing it as a burden, it's more so like I knew that would help me with my own growth. And that's how I'm seeing it now. But not all people see that, or all people are in tune or aware of that, of the lesson in itself. So when it came to relating to traumas and so forth, I was going back to like women who have experienced these things, I was telling myself like, yo, like it clicked when she said that. And I was like, but I can see her justification behind that. Because this is how trauma has been passed through the wombs, or inherited through whatever experience we had, or going back to our childhood experiences and relating it to how we presently now show up in the world, show up in relationships, show up to ourselves. I was like, yo, because I've told my part about how I even came into interacting with the opposite sex. Because again, from the pain I induced, or just the pain that I experienced from my mother and from the women that were also wounded and so forth, it, you know, I was in these relationships to where, again, I was, being that I didn't know what repressed emotions was, being that I didn't know how to navigate my emotions, whether I wanted to see, because let's say this is going to be great. There were amazing women in my life. The issue with me, the internal conflict that I had a lot to do with my internal battles with what I did not know about who really I was and accepting the things in the past. So I allow what I experienced in my childhood to that's what led me to self-sabotage, self-sacrifice, overgive, you know, do these things from a place where, again, from a feminine place, but I was being hyper masculine. I was in overhaul. So in these partnerships is that I met amazing women. And it wasn't them. It had a lot to do with where my woundings or my own selfish attachments to the idea of them. So it's not just the woman, it's the wounded feminine energy that I was carrying, the burdens, the so forth, that I was carrying into relationships. So there could have been women who also were wounded, or there could have been women who were probably healed or healing. Let's just say there was just different women, all of them in different energies, because we all have masculine and feminine energies. What I'm recognizing is that having that conversation with my eldest sister, her saying that, I was like, wow, that makes a lot of sense why you don't feel safe, because she discussing to me, like, she even told my mom at a point in time that the boyfriend, because this was an early relationship where she grew, like, this was a long time span of years that this man was in our life. So to even hear that my sister approached my mom, and then for a lot of people this has happened to, is that naturally, like, you'll see this dysfunction or the distortion or the wounded mother who dismiss their child's feelings, emotions, or whatever it is, or basically their truth, for the sake of the relationship with that man, due to their own internal wounding, due to their own father wounds. So instead of standing in their truth, that mother or that matriarchal figure will lie to themselves to save the foundation, the false foundation, which eventually is going to crumble. They try to save that, and in reality, they don't even realize that what they're trying to save, rather than themselves, which that encounter when you have a little girl telling their mother, this happened to me, can either create more unhealthy dialogues, or can keep that loop going, keep that spirit in there that is trying to keep that family, that sexual demon, whatever you want to call it, like that attachment there, to keep that generational curse there in a way. So that interaction is for that woman or that matriarchal figure or so forth, however it has happened, to be able to break that chain, because that's something that could have followed spiritually, or something that mom could have inherited, to where she probably experienced something similar. But due to her woundings, she never spoke about it, or she never felt safe to speak about it, because sometimes you're in certain things to where you have an abusive mother, matriarchal figure or so forth, to where they'll end up wanting to put the daughter out over there. They'll either fight them, they'll either abuse them verbally, mentally, emotionally, and so forth, or even some type of abandonment. And I saw that. No, now that I see clearer, now that these women, my sisters and them experience abandonment. There's abandonment in home when you put more emphasis on a man due to your own father wounds and neglect your emotions, yourself, and neglect your descendants, your kids. And this has been a pattern from both women and men. And so when she said that, I was like, wow. And you can and I can say this is probably so many women who, and I'm not saying all, but who are deep within themselves lying to themselves because their wounding is they're putting on a mask that they want to show up as a man, like want to portray themselves as like, because see, their wounding causes them to try to show up tough or try to portray themselves or carry this image of like wanting to be more of a man, wanting to, and what I'm saying is like to take on this narrative of being like the man in a relationship. And so what they're not saying, or what's hidden basically with these same sex when woman on woman, is that it's not to say all, but what I'm able to clarify, it's like, wow, is that why you made that decision? Is because you don't feel safe? And I could see, again, it's not to compare, I could just see the similarities to why a woman will come to that decision is because she doesn't trust men. It's because everything that her foundation began when it came to men, especially if she had a father that did something like this, or a father figure, or any, and see, that's the thing about men, we carry father energy. We carry mother energy as well, feminine and masculine. So the thing about feminine and masculine principles is that once these things happen, some type of trauma is induced, then that creates an unhealthy pattern. And that's from my own experience of seeing things happen, whether it comes from my own hands or from the hands of other women. So I'm able to recognize like, wow, here it is, a woman just now trying to find out, who she is. And you gotta realize a lot of us have masked ourselves because of these traumas, because there isn't a world or a system or anything set in place for us to be vulnerable. So when I'm sitting here talking to a sister that hasn't had a safe place to be vulnerable, or her first place to feel safe and to be vulnerable was shut out, was shut down. And then not to mention, you're talking about women who they have experienced this. So when that's shut down and pushed down, you're repressing that in the womb, within yourself. And when you repress that, then that's when this unhealthy pattern comes along where, let's say you may not trust men, but you're trying to trust men again. So sometimes when you enter these relationships, and you see this a lot, you enter it not knowing about your trauma responses or knowing what really is going on with you. But you want to give off to the world or to people that, this is who I am. And then let's say a child is created from that, knowing that there's really no depth to the relationship. There's really nothing to build upon. Because and this is just different patterns from people, that depending on how the sexual trauma was induced, this leads people into behavior patterns. This leads them into a life of living, when that trauma is not addressed, this leads them into a life of a false identity, or creating foundations upon, things as such. I've talked to women who have, after certain things related to trauma, they go into like, could be graphic for people. So they go into something like prostitution. Some may call it like pimping, or even to where, like, again, there is a thing called manizing. We call it, womanizing, but where they use men. And I've come across women like that. Like I said, there are great women, but I'm not going to make it seem like every woman's intentions were pure. No, I've come across women who, being that they don't know their traumas or certain things, or that they're hiding from it, then whether they're intentionally wanting to use men because of that pain, because they're ignoring it. So they're like, you know what, I'm gonna go out there and this is what I'm gonna do. And this is what happens. You seeing this happen with a lot of men. They got mama issues, so they're, you can see that in the music. You see it in a lot of stuff. It's like intentionally, purposely putting that energy out there, not knowing that universal law is gonna come back. That's just from experience. So, it's like when you look at a lot of music and a lot of certain things, that shit is trauma related. I can easily see that. Like, you can tell it's so connected to trauma. Certain artists come to mind when you look at certain stuff. I mean, to really push out there, and you can tell this is a spiritual thing, because when you really push out there to devalue, to teach little girls not to even value themselves, that's already like preparing them for a road of self-destruction, for a journey of self-destruction. You know what I'm saying? It like really, I'm not even surprised, but it like disgusts me to hear some of the lyrics or just certain things. Like I said, there was a point of time, I'm sitting here like, a song came on today, I'm like, what? Like, I can't believe I used to listen to this. I even thought it was weird when I hear people say, I used to tell myself this. I was like, when I hear a man singing a song, and you hear him say, call me your daddy, you can be my baby, I just always thought that was fucking weak, strange. Like, just, what? Why would you, I don't know what, you have a father or dad. Like, why would you, like I said, I've experienced, I was like, why? I tried to think, is that kind of trauma? Like, if you ever hear, like, would that make sense if a woman in the song say, well, they probably have, they be saying baby a lot. Baby, and then you might like that. I'm like, what? But why isn't, that's wild, because when you hear some of these artists previously, they would say that. But then why wouldn't a woman say, I'm your mama, you my baby, but then you hear a man say, call him daddy, then you his baby? Yo, some shit, I just be like, what? What? But getting back on topic with the fact of like, a lot of women, the reason I tell you, like, a lot of the reason, the healing that's happening, we're like uncovering, is like, just having that talk with my sister somehow led me to talk to my mom. And this is really gonna get deep, because it's like, I really feel like, because it's like I'm learning now as I'm healing through things to better my approach with women. Because I'm at a place where it's like, we've all been attacked enough. We've all been attacked enough when it comes to what people feel like we didn't do right and mistakes and so forth. And so I had this discussion after having that talk with my sister. Like, it really hit me to the depths. Like, I really felt a sense of compassion, because it's like, this is your sister who you grew up with. And it makes you question, like, well, is she living this life? Is she really being honest with who she is? Is a lot of what a lot of our women and men living related to their trauma? Whether it's sexually, emotionally, a lot of things. And honestly, it's like, I'm not saying that's what she's doing, but I'm saying I can see that dialogue play out with a lot of people, yo. Because I'm like, to hear a woman say that, I used to sit back and be like, dang. And when I see a lot of this aggression when it comes to certain women who play that field of trying to be a man, like I said, I'm not attacking no one's sexual preference, because again, I know people personally to where, to each his own how you want to live your life. That's not my reality. But when I'm speaking about trauma related things, where I see people who have a natural aggression, women that like, some women that come off like real tough and stuff, I've noticed that they have this aggression towards men. And I'm like, yo, I wonder what they experience. I wonder why it is that some of them feel that they're so combative, but they're so aggressive in their approach to where they feel like they're more of a man than the man itself. And I ask myself, I'm like, why is that? And I sit there, I'm like, is it trauma related? And like I said, this is some people. This is just what I've seen. And then when I'm talking about personally, where some people I know who have experienced some type of traumas with men, and you're talking about how they cannot trust them. And that can stem, I'm connecting it to the father wound to see why this behavior is displayed. Why they are living the way they live. It's none of my business, but just the fact of how I know who has experienced things like that. See, when my sister expressed that to me, it's like I can see her now wanting to, when she says she's afraid or don't want to really be around men. And I really see that a lot of that is so much trauma related to where, you had no one there to protect you, let alone a father figure. Let alone when you told your mom, who naturally you were supposed to confide in, or, you're looking for that emotional support and security, and it's completely like dismissed. So then that's when women can repress their emotions over time. And that doesn't just create a father wound, that also creates a mother wound. But so this is why you see a lot of women throw shade or hate towards each other, because a lot of their wounds has a lot to do with what they've experienced with their mom. Because everybody wants to say, oh, he got mommy issues, he got daddy issues. We all have mother and father wounds. There's things that I wish my dad would have been there. At the same moment, I had to grieve over the mother I wish I had. I had to grieve over the father I wish I had. Even though he made a decision to part ways to do what was in his best interest. So that also put me in a place of being hyper masculine or even hyper feminine. Let's say that. Is it? Yeah. Yeah. Hyper feminine, because I'm still learning, or had to learn to rebuild a structure. Like literally balance, being more logical now, being more practical. Literally, there was a point in life where I was going so much with the flow, so much of in my femininity, to where I had to naturally come back from learning from the woundedness that I experienced with my mom, to learn how to now balance out with not having a father physically there, or the man that I had physically there, a stepfather, or the men that I had. They were unhealthy aspects of that. Not all, but majority of what I experienced. So seeing that as a child, listening to that, I built structures on that. You see what I'm saying? And being whatever I experienced from these men, these were structures that, again, led to self-destruction. I mean, these were structures, that led to self-destructing, self-sabotaging, not really seeing a healthy dialogue with men who interacted with women. So a lot of it plays out in a balanced way. Whether we want to think that it's more so a father wound and a mother wound, no, they're both for a lot of us, depending on who it is. When you talk about single parent homes and so forth, that automatically eliminates the balance that you need from whichever woman or man. Being in relationships with people who didn't have a mother, that automatically removes the emotional structures that little girls need. So this is why you see them be hyper feminine, but be wounded in their masculine aspect. They'll be more motherly and overgive and do all these things to keep a man. To smother him in a relationship. Because due to their wounds of not having their father there, or whatever it is, and not knowing how to really be secure in their emotions and lean towards their intuition, they'll smother. See the word mother, but they'll smother the man and not allow him to really focus on his path, to really walk in his purpose. What we naturally do, men, we are naturally focused in the mind. We're naturally focused on the journey. We're naturally focused on our purpose. But when you see the dynamics in the past of how things operated, You're talking about wounds around the fact of a lot of us as men were smothered. We wasn't, due to our abandonment with our mothers. Some mothers smothered us. Some mothers did not want us to be pushed into our purpose, so they would purposely remove their hand, remove their support. They would purposely abandon us, or they would do things knowing that it would affect us in the long run. So that would keep us looping around to depend on mama, to come back to mama, and so forth. That's one thing I had to generationally break. I had to literally have this discussion with my mama the night before about the fact of I cannot save you from whatever you're going through. Her experience is different, but it's like I had to let her know, like, I'm not finna run back or run to your aid when I know that you are, in the reality, the actuality is I know this woman is wounded. I had to sit down and tell her, like, it hurts me that what my sister went through and she told you. And it hurts me that the fact of what most don't know is that I expressed to her, I said it hurt me because it took 34 years. You got to realize healing is a process. To even get to this place, to even tell, because it's not that it hasn't happened before where you want to sit down and have a healthy relationship with your mother and or, father. And for some people, due to their ego, due to their woundedness, they're so blocked that they're not open to that. Their hearts are not open and so forth. And so that's a challenge in that, to where it pushes you to move away and walk into your purpose as men and women. So now, finally, after 34 years, having a dialogue where she's listening, and that's only because solely that, eventually you have to move away. 4 years ago, I was being faced with the fact of seeing the root causes of how I was smothered as a little boy, how I was emotionally abandoned and so forth. How, a lot of things centered around that, to where I had to express to her, like, even when I was there physically in front of her, like, you won't ever get to see me again. I love you, but I have to be honest with myself. I cannot lie to myself and tell her on the phone, like, hey, we're just now on the phone last night. I'm like, we're just now building a healthy relationship, and I'm in the driver's seat. The tables have turned now. You don't get to this. I get to choose whether I want to repair this relationship. You don't decide that, because when I put it in your hands, when I was giving my power over, when I was allowing you to decide it, when I was younger, you took full advantage of it. Now that I taken my power back and coming into my own awareness, I realize, like, now you don't have the opportunity to hurt me anymore, and you won't have the opportunity, because I want to allow myself to give my power over. I want to allow myself to get out of character, or to think that I gotta, just because you're my mother. I had to tell my own mother on the phone, I'm removing this mother title right now. And what I did, I told her that. And I said, well, within myself, I was saying, like, I have to see the little girl in her. And I told her, I said, you don't realize, like, a lot of things we experience from you as a mother created wounds for us that we're now facing, as me being a son to you and your daughters who have experienced things at the hands of your, unawareness or not willing to show up for us. So now you're getting the other end of the stick, or the tables have turned now, to where a part of your karma is learning that you too are going to experience things. It may not look similar, but a part of your karma energetically could be like your kids choosing themselves and walking away and to be more healthy. And for you to decide to get angry or to be upset with that, that's okay. But when you know your worth, and a lot of you, when you're coming into your worth, you got to realize that I expressed to my mother, I said, my peace is more vital. I cannot save you from the experience that you keep creating with men, because that's just the reality. I had to let her know, like, you're still in things where people don't have your best interest. You're still with a man or still around people who don't care about your well-being. And I say, when you don't care about your well-being, no one will care about your well-being. I say, you never showed us boundaries, but I'm assessing boundaries now. And then I have my sisters are finally coming around, because it's different from a woman and man. But everyone does things differently. Women naturally have a natural emotional connection. It's deeper when it comes to women. Women naturally are deeper on the emotional aspect. It's not to say we aren't as men, but women are naturally at a heart space. They love. It's natural for them to nurture and love. And I'm especially to my mom, you didn't show us that. You didn't offer us that. You know, to have a mother or to have a person who you've seen verbally attack your sisters, verbally abuse them, physically abuse them, you know, all these things because of your internal hate for yourself. And I had to express to her, I said, love, I said, you're hurting. I said, my sisters are hurting. I said, to even hear conversations about your own mother, my grandmother, how she speaks about you, I said, it hurts me to hear her speak about you, but she's hurting. I said, y'all have displayed cruel behavior. Y'all have displayed woundedness. And now that we're stepping into our power, now that we choose to love ourselves, and now that we choose to not want our kids or certain things to be involved with drama and dysfunction and toxicity, now you're upset. Now you feel obligated when you have the opportunity to do these things. Did I miss something? So, kudos to y'all that are either coming out of something or even coming into yourself. Some of us are at different stages and different places in our life where you got to realize some of these caregivers, like I even expressed, I wasn't attacking her because some people feel like that could be an attack. No, I told her, I said, you did the very best you could. And some of us are, as we heal, we're healthy versions. And it's wild. How could I put this? Because I don't know how much time I got on here. Let me tell you something. What the divine revealed to me is that in me healing myself and facing these traumas when it comes to like my mother wound, I'm able to naturally see women. Some women that, you know, no judgment, but I can just tell by their patterns or certain things, pick up on like, okay, wow, okay, and so forth. And I'm listening to their stories and so forth, and I'm just like, wow. And so for me, as I gradually come into that and that acceptance, I can see the little girl in my mother. So I told her, I said, I'm not angry with you because you can only use the tools that you were given. Once we really accept that and realize that these caregivers can only use the gifts, the tools that they've had, and they had the opportunity just like we have the opportunity now as caregivers, as parents or whatever, to be able to do it differently. That's why I don't beat myself over what I have financially, what I have and this and that. Because when you go to the depths of it, to a soul aspect, to the energetic aspect, to what your experience was, you're talking about the simple fact of realizing like your mother didn't offer you emotional support. So I gotta realize like, wow, I gotta build this structure. I gotta build this stone by stone, because obviously whatever she didn't show me, whatever, she gave off this, she was lying to herself. She gave off this false identity to the world. And now that I'm not surprised that these relationship dynamics or these things are crumbling. It's literally, happening like that, and to where we have to be the one to reconstruct that or build this shit upon stones now. When we can be honest with ourselves. I had to be honest with myself so I can show up and show whether my partner, people, or my daughter, like, your father is hurting, but I'm going to get through this. But I'm not going to push down or repress my emotions. I'm not going to not be authentic in this shit, because I've seen the inauthenticity. So I realized, like, in me coming into being this more healthier version for myself, I'm able to reciprocate that even to the people who are not able to see that. Because you as a woman, wherever you are in your age, you still reflect back a mother energy. Whether your mother was in denial, whether whatever she's going through internally, you still carry a motherly energy. So whatever hate, whatever it is you're going through or had gone through with her, your energy and your spirit alone, your soul, your essence of who you are, you naturally reflect back her insecurities or even her wounds with her mother. Same thing goes for men. Even if you are a woman, I naturally reflect back a masculine or father energy, to where
fact that we're in a relationship or in something is going to highlight your wounds. And you're going to do the same for me. That's something I had to learn and accept. Is that I'm like, oh, now I see why I was in this. Now I see why this person. And sometimes this person can be more masculine, be more feminine. That's why you see all these debate when, well, do she make more money? What if your girl makes 6 figures? I'm like, she's more her masculine, but that don't mean it's healthy. Oh, he's so sensitive, he emotional, he had like a this and oh my God. But he could be in a healthy emotion. He can be emotional and expressive and sensitive. But you gotta, it's the thing is that is it evolved or unevolved? Unevolved meaning like, is it unhealthy? You can see the unhealthy patterns. Evolved meaning, and so that's the thing with people in our lives. I can recognize women who have evolved. You talking about zodiac signs, all this other stuff, energy, you can see people who have evolved. I choose to evolve. So I'm able to recognize unevolved energy in people. I'm able to see that whatever my sister's going through, I'm like, wow, now she has to build up the courage, because she's like, I don't really be emotional. I was like, oh my gosh. And I can see the red flags. I can see the signs to where I'm like, well, it's okay to cry. But when you're talking about growing up in environments where if you're trying to come to your mother with such traumas and she doesn't believe you, oh my gosh. When you're in environments where you have had mothers and wounded women that shut up, I don't want to hear that, and they surprised when your daughter and I told my sister, I said, I'm gonna be honest with you, sis. I'm like, you really reflecting the same behavior mama did, whether you know it or not. And see, that's the thing we're unconscious of or not aware. That doesn't mean that when we were younger and innocent, we received this subconscious program. We thought that this was okay until a lot of us came into the awareness like, oh my God, this motherfucker cruel. That was messed up what they did. Then the frustration around that after you either had kids or after you either have been in so many relationships, now you're trying to heal, now you're in a career, now you're here, now you're trying to make sense of the world. It's like, man, that can make someone lose it because they repress so much. That makes them question their identity, question their sexuality, and so forth. And I'm saying like, yo, so to be on the phone with my mom and to hear her, because she's in a vulnerable place right now because a lot of things she's going through, I was like, I'm not going to attack you because I ain't going to go all the way into detail about things. I just let her know your children have been hurt by your actions. And some people, and see, this is the thing, a lot of when we were taught to repress, we avoid conflict. And conflict don't always got to be physical. I'm talking about to get that fucking energy out. When you need to talk to this person, let them know how you felt. When you need to speak up, that's a part of you taking your power back from the very people who said they wanted to protect you, who was put there to protect you. Like I can go on. And so the beauty of a lot of this is like, man, I'm able to just to see like the little girl in my elder sister be like, man. And then other women who have experienced this, who are still holding on, who are still probably already have created kids from their trauma and they don't even know about it. And then wondering why their kids are displaying such behavior. And then you gotta realize they inherit that through the fact of what you didn't realize that at that moment that you were carrying in your womb, and that fear of that happening. When she said about my niece, it's like it's related to her traumas, and that's why a lot of us sometimes, due to our own subconscious fear, we project that, or we use it as in a way of like overprotecting. With a mother, it can look like smothering her son because of something she may have experienced, or see her father go through with her mother, so she don't want her son to go through that, or seeing a father that he had went through something traumatic, or seeing something to where he becomes overprotective. I'm telling you, and that can look so many different ways, y'all. I'm telling you, like it's this healing shit is not for the faint of heart, man. It's not. to even have that conversation with my mom, and oh, that's what I want to get to. It's like, again, yeah, it's like me being at this place now. It's like I don't want to hold on to the anger. I don't want to hold on to the past. I'm learning now to navigate this and put it in my rearview mirror, to be able to move forward, with myself, to have a more healthier relationship with myself. And if I feel like I need to salvage this relationship, or I need to feel like I can rebuild it, one of the most courageous things I had to do is accepting that I don't have to repair certain things if it's not repairable. If it's beyond something that I know that it's just what it is, then I had to allow myself to grieve and feel the emotions and be like, you know what, this too shall pass. But a lot of us now that, let's say you have kids, it's so important for you to be so focused on your well-being, and even in partnerships that encourage you focusing on and facing those traumas, and possibly going to get some type of professional help or specialist that related to therapy. Whatever your intuition is calling you to do. Like, that's what we're building and being encouraged to do. Like, I ain't finna be with nobody that ain't trying to support and encourage the fact of, like, look, I done went through some shit. It's traumatic. I'm not perfect, but at the same moment, it's like, there are moments where I have said, bro, I had to get to a place like, I gotta get some type of assistance. I gotta, and it's scary. It's scary because you don't know what's gonna come up and so forth. You don't know, that's not a thing that we would like talk about. I had to tell my mom, getting back to the therapy thing, because it leans in not to just therapy from traumas. Trauma can be all across the board. I had to tell my mom, like, when I was hit by a car and you didn't think that I needed assistance, yet you came down there and yelled and screamed. It's just something that, like, I felt like I've had to live with for years. I said, do you know, after playing basketball for years, most people don't know, like, me doing all these painting and stuff, there's times where I can't stand alone. There's moments where, like, I have been dealing with, and it's my left side, which is like, left side is feminine, right side is masculine, or it pertains to like mother and father. And it happened with her, like, and just to go through that, and I'm just like, no support, no nothing. That was one of the most challenging things that was like for me to really try to navigate through, is the fact of like, this is something that I'm learning now to rehab just as much. And it's been painful, excruciating, and even times where I didn't even know what was going on. There was times where I was trying to pursue certain things with basketball, and I had no idea that, like, that hindered me. So to come to that awareness, it's like, wow, had I went, because I had opportunities to play basketball overseas and do stuff without even having, high school experience and so forth, and college and nothing. I was literally dedicated to that. But I tell myself, had I went down that journey, it's no telling what would have, happened before, had I found out, how long my career would have been. But I'm grateful to have met someone who knows about yoga and stretching and things that, again, that trauma being related to that hip, to my back, learning more stuff about the body, learning stuff more, the anatomy and so forth, how all things are connected. And gradually through all these years, that's one of the most things that I've like, that I never really spoke about. But I had to tell her, like, I've been dealing with this. Like, the fact of, like, there's times where I have to rest all day and I don't even want to get up. And people are wondering, like, well, why don't you go work? Why don't you go do this? People don't know the depths of that. Then you're in places where growing up, I'm trying to find structure, trying to do this, and, that comes back up again. And the importance of your spine, your hips, all these things when you're talking about that connects to, your, just everything. The mind, everything. The hip flexors, the hips connect to so many things. And so that trauma in itself, how I showed up, You know, a lot of trauma we store in our hips. So when you're talking about even women, you know, who have dealt with sexual traumas, a lot of things they've stored in their body. A lot of things I realized, like the aggression I had from feeling the pain, from feeling the inflation and stuff like that. You know, now navigating the fact of like how I try to even show up in relationships with myself and other people, because it's like it's when I say like how I can see how women trying to trust men again, it has been very vital for me to learn to ease into that again. And that's why I see the significance of my princess, because it was definitely like highlighting a lot of the feminine wounds that I had. And to be able to, because it was a challenge. Because just as for women, like you're talking about trauma related things, there are things women go through to where what they've experienced with men, and then they have a son, and that smothering is also a part of their trauma of, you know, whatever they experience with men. So they don't necessarily all the time treat their sons like with respect and honor. You know, they sometimes, due to their traumas or whatever, treat them like a spouse or a partner. Let's be real, I've seen it. And the same thing can be for men who hasn't acknowledged their woundings with their mother issues. They'll treat their daughters the same way, whether they know it unconsciously or not. And that's where this overprotectiveness comes in. And that's why I told myself, when it came to me really seeing things within myself, I don't feel like I have to be overprotected. I just feel like I know that as long as I'm focused on my well-being, doing what I need, then I could show up and being a guide for, you know, the princess and so forth. And that's because it's important for me to see my wounds, my mother wounds, so that she doesn't become a projection of that. She doesn't become, you know, is that like me living that out through her. And so, and the beauty of it is like, this is the things that we don't have knowledge of, and now that we're coming into, and now that we're trying to heal, there's so many layers and all these things. I'm like, man. And so, you know, it's deeper for both sides, because sometimes a mother she don't even know her father wounds, she can have a deep hatred for herself with men that she don't even realize unconsciously that she's gonna develop with her son. Sometimes men do the same thing. If they don't face themselves and their wounds when it comes to things like that, they will. I've seen it, bro. It's weird. They'll come. It's like, this is deep. It's like the sexual trauma around with me and what I experienced had a lot to do with like me learning to even look at women completely different. Not in what the world portrays society, like in a overly sexualized way, because I don't want to have a mindset to where it's like, okay, the princess, your daughter needs to know the importance of her bringing life when she gets to a certain age. The importance of how vital she is, you know, as creation, or just as how delicate, you know, just the things that, again, from the lens of a lot of us men, we didn't see women portrayed that way. That highlighted, it changed my whole trajectory on women. It changed my whole perception. It helped me, when I see my daughter, it helped me look at women completely different. It really brought up everything about how I view the anatomy of women, the creation, everything pertaining to the matriarchal, everything pertaining to like, I was telling her mom like the importance of her, like even mothers knowing the importance of, this is why the sexual trauma is important, because when women recognize their trauma, you'll instill into your daughter. And see, that's how I connected with my sister. Said that's her greatest fear. And that's subconscious fear. She don't want that very thing to happen to her daughter. So to be a generational curse for women, it's like you acknowledging your trauma, so you instill into your daughter that she is valuable, that her womb her yoni is something that she brings forth life. That's something sacred. You gotta realize our women haven't seen the sacredness in them. They've been just seen as an object rather than something that is of value and substance. Something that needs to be poured into. Something that needs to be, like a tree giving shade, or just, delicate like a flower. And so, that's one thing I was telling her mom. I was like, some mothers have experienced certain things, so that's why men and women, we represent things totally different. But it's all connected. I represent the patriarchal, but I still carry the matriarchal energy and aspect of those things because what I've experienced with that, I came from that. With women, you are the matriarchal, but also your experience, whatever your experience with the patriarchal reflects your character. Whatever you subconsciously don't want to, that like is pushed aside or unconsciously you don't acknowledge, it's connected. Whether you had a father present or not, whether even if that father was present and he wasn't emotionally supportive or really instilled in you the value of who you are, or the value of who you are, just not as a woman. Seeing like a lot of our fathers, like, let's be real, the patriarchal that you see that's being destroyed right now, both matriarchal and patriarchal things that are being rebuilt, a lot of those men would just focus on seeing women as objects. Let's be honest. Or subjected them to, when you get into even to the religious aspect, trying to put them in a place where it keeps them confined and limited. That's control, manipulation. And guess who continued that? Where it previously led up to the manipulation of a matriarchal before this patriarchal aspect was instilled. So then you see this crumbling, and you see how men display themselves. So you can't look at the patriarchal without looking at the matriarchal. That's what I'm looking at women. I'm like, y'all wonder why this is happening, because you're enabling this for men. And you're enabling it from your wounds, from your pain. And guess what he's doing? He's going, we again, if mama is the first teacher, when you look at the matriarchal, then guess what we're doing? We're naturally because whether you know it or not, we're naturally, the emotional aspect, we're naturally going to pick up on these things. Whether you think that we're just like, oh, nah, that's not. No, we're naturally going to do these things to where it's like, well, she says she want this. And it depends on if this man is evolved or unevolved. She said she want a man with 6 figures. She said she want this. She said she want to have da-da-da-da-da. Okay, depending on where that man is, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and physically, everybody want to exclude the fact of people have traumas. People have experiences. And then here it is, you're asking every man or everybody to just show up like this. This is this is unbelievable. And for women to even believe that, and men, for you to even tell yourself to even go down that road to live a lie and be dishonest with yourself, and to try to even play that role. And then you go down that road of becoming all of this, to becoming something you don't really want to be, what you're not called to be, just to show up in this partnership or relationship with this woman who don't even really know herself. Because she's trying to tell you who to be. She's trying to mold you. And depending on where she is that coming from an evolved place or unevolved place? And mostly what I've been seeing, you cannot tell me that if people aren't taking accountability for themselves and their experiences, they're coming from an unevolved place. And that's why you see the same repetitive shit on social media. You see the same thing trending, same thing. And all you see is trauma. All you see is people just, they don't know how to be themselves. That's why you see all these people following. It's funny how on social media, it's funny how they tell you you got these followers. I don't want nobody to follow me. Because there's a difference between leading and following. But at a point in time, a leader had to be a follower. But it's funny how on social media it tells you who your followers, who's following you. Y'all don't hear me though. Y'all don't even see that in this I'm gonna finish with this analogy. Even on these platforms and wherever you are, you're a leader and you don't even know unintentionally that you're leading someone. Whether you're leading them astray, whether you're leading them to themselves, unconsciously or consciously. When you got followers, what are they following? What are they following you to do? Scam? What are they following you to do? When you see these women come up there and all women and men talking about all this other stuff, you got to know there's youth, there's people behind it too. What are you following? What are you leading these people to? There's a lot of false teachers. Because when you talk about someone that's not aware, have no type of self-awareness or unevolved, at some point there you got to realize, like, okay, are you really thinking for yourself? Are you really even aware? So when it comes to these dynamics and certain things that's happening, who has been leading who? Man, it's so funny when you look at these platforms, like, y'all really care that this person got 1 million followers, 2 million followers. And when I look at whether it's women or men, and when I see the trauma and the spirit behind that shit, oh, y'all don't want to get into that. That's going to be another one. I'm going to just leave y'all with this. That's going to be another one. Pay attention. Look at the trauma behind that shit. I'm telling you, I had to come into this. I wasn't always here. When I see some of these women parading themselves like they do, and men, and then the followers they have, I guarantee you a lot of how they putting their body or whatever it is out there, depending on what it is, there's a spirit behind that shit. There's something behind that. And the men I'm telling you from my experience, things that I used to be drawn to had a lot to do with whatever spiritual warfare that I was connected with, whatever things I was internally battling with, even trauma related. There was a time where certain shit on my platform was just connected to either violence or something sexual. And I realized this was something I was battling with. And even that was connected to trauma, growing up in conflict-driven environments. So these platforms of corruption around it, they'll put stuff, or stuff will come up on your feed. And you'll be like, why am I watching this fighting stuff? You don't even know that, like, dopamine. You don't even know that's just feeding you. I'm telling you, man, it's that deep, man. Have you questioning so many things. Even the things when it comes to, like, porn and other things that's being presented. Man, I'm telling you, yo, it's everything. This is the golden age. Everything is coming up and out to be reborn. But most importantly, are you willing to allow the structures? I told my mom that, I said, until you're ready to change and ready to shift and do something new, you got to be willing to let go of the old version of yourself. That means the people energetically around you, everything. Because what she's going through, she's in a vulnerable place. And we all have this free will. We all have a choice to choose, like, you know what? If I'm going to grow and expand out of something, a part of me is asking, I have to really sit with myself and be like, you know what? Why haven't it's not even that I received or obtained this. What is keeping me from this? You ever ask yourself, what is keeping you from being in a healthy relationship? And I ain't talking about with somebody else. What is keeping you from being in a healthy relationship with yourself? What is keeping you from that peace? What is keeping you from that harmony? What is keeping you from prosperity? I'm not just talking about money. I had to tell, I said, until you see the value within yourself, man, nobody else is. Look at your surroundings. You created that. I had to tell myself that. I said, why you think I had to move away, do certain things? Because it's just what it is. And so now that I'm having these talks, it's just like it's creating a healthy place, a healthy environment, or just now learning what it is to build a healthy dialogue. And sometimes you be surprised. It's a lot of us out here, whether you have a mother or not, we're just now, because we're coming into our own awareness, just now building something healthy, trying to. And when that thing, you're trying to do that, that's when certain things just come in and try to distract you. But you got this. You got this. You're going to get through this. Let y'all go. Take care of yourself. Peace and blessings. Shalom.